The distress call came at 0300 hours. Short. Frantic. Then, nothing. This is Outpost Hadrian, repeat, Outpost Hadrian. Under attack. Unknown enemy. There. Static. Captain Elias Vance stood motionless on the bridge of the Vindicator, his fingers curled into a tight fist. He had heard plenty of distress calls before, but this one unsettled him in a way he couldn't yet articulate. The colony was a quiet research outpost, civilian, unarmed. Who the hell would attack it? ETA to Hadrian? Vance asked, his voice sharp. 9 minutes, replied Lieutenant Carter, his hands skimming across the controls. We're already at full burn. Vance exhaled slowly, scanning the faces of his bridge crew. Tension thick in the air. They all knew what Hadrian was. A tiny settlement with families, children. Whatever had happened, there wasn't an accident. Sergeant Cole Ramirez, standing beside Vance, adjusted his gauntlet. I don't like this, Captain. Neither do I. Dr. Marilorn, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward. If this is first contact, then it's a hostile one, Ramirez cut in. You saw the signal. That wasn't a negotiation. The ship's proximity alert beeped. The Vindicator exited slipspace, and the viewport filled with the looming sight of Hadrian. A graveyard. Vance's gut twisted. The colony lay in ruins. Entire structures were reduced to molten slag, their foundations still smoldering. Emergency beacons flickered among the debris. Bodies, scorched, twisted, lay scattered in the streets. No signs of a struggle. No sign that anyone had even fought back. Mother of God. Carter whispered. Scan for survivors, Vance ordered, masking the bile rising in his throat. Mira pressed a hand over her mouth. Who could have done this? A red light flashed on the console. One life sign detected. Weak. Vance didn't hesitate. Ramirez, get a squad down there. Now. The wind howled through the ruins as Ramirez and his Marines landed on the surface. The air reeked of burned flesh and scorched metal. Boots crunched over shattered glass and debris as they moved toward the weak biosignal. Over here. Corporal Hayes called out. Beneath the wreckage of a collapsed building lay a child. A girl, no older than 10. Blood smeared her face, her clothes torn. Her tiny fingers twitched as she tried to crawl toward them. Ramirez knelt beside her. We've got you, kid. You're safe now. Her lips moved, but no words came. Ramirez leaned closer. What did you say? A whisper. Barely audible. They said we weren't worthy. Then, her body convulsed. Her breathing hitched. By the time the medics reached her, she was gone. Silence stretched between the Marines. We weren't worthy. The words settled like a stone in Ramirez's gut. Then, their radios crackled. Unidentified vessel detected in orbit. Ramirez's blood ran cold. The enemy was still here. Back aboard the Vindicator, alarms blared. Enemy vessel decloaking. Carter shouted. It's just sitting there. Vance stared at the view screen. The alien ship was sleek, angular, obsidian black. No markings. No transmissions. Just a monolithic shadow against the stars. Then, a message. Not words, something deeper, directly into their minds. A voice, cold and measured. You are inefficient. Your species is flawed. The 12 were a test. You failed. Vance's hands trembled with rage. You slaughtered civilians. That was a test? You react with emotion, not logic. That is why you will fall. The channel cut off. A moment later, the alien ship charged weapons. They're locking onto us. Carter shouted. Shields up. Open fire. Vance bellowed. The Vindicator roared to life, railguns and missile pods launching a relentless assault. The alien vessel retaliated with terrifying precision. Their weapons cut through human shielding like paper. The ship trembled under the impact. "Hull breach on deck 3, a crewman called out. Ramirez burst onto the bridge, still clad in his armor. "Captain, we've gotta." The alien vessel suddenly halted its attack. A moment later, it vanished, folding space around itself and disappearing into the void. The silence was deafening. "What the hell was that?" Mira whispered. Vance gritted his teeth. "A message. They wanted us to know how easily they could have wiped us out." Ramirez slammed a fist against the bulkhead. 12 dead civilians. Then they just leave? Are we supposed to be grateful they spared the rest? Myra's voice was barely a whisper. "They weren't just testing us. They were studying us." Vance turned toward his crew. "Not anymore. If they wanted to see how we react, they'll get their answer. And we'll make sure they regret it." His gaze hardened as he spoke the words that would define humanity's future. "We're going to war." The bridge of the Vindicator was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The alien vessel was gone, but its message lingered like a toxin in the air. The 12 were a test. "You failed." Captain Elias Vance clenched his jaw, his fingers digging into the armrest of his chair. He wasn't going to let this go unanswered. "Lieutenant Carter," he said, voice low, controlled. "Track their trajectory. Find out where they went." Carter's fingers flew across the console. "They folded space, Captain. No readable trajectory. Their tech is beyond anything we've seen." Vance inhaled slowly. "Of course, it wouldn't be that easy. Get me Admiral Kovacs on a priority channel. We need to report this immediately." Ramirez stepped forward, arms crossed. "Sir, we can't just sit here. They killed civilians. Families. We have to hit back. Now." Mira Lorne, standing near the viewport, shook her head. "We can't fight an enemy we don't understand. Charging in blind will get more of us killed." "So what?" Ramirez snapped. "We wait for them to decide when to kill more of us? Like hell. We need to make them bleed." Vance stood. "We will. But we do it the right way. Find their weaknesses. Learn what they fear. Then we strike. Hard." His words seemed to settle the argument, for now. But Vance saw the fire in Ramirez's eyes, the barely restrained fury in every clenched muscle. This war wasn't just about survival. It was personal. Fleet Command, high-priority briefing. Hours later, the holographic form of Admiral Kovacs flickered into existence on the bridge. A war-hardened veteran, his sharp gaze took in Vance's report with grim silence. When the captain finished, Kovacs exhaled through his nose. "We've been aware of anomalous readings along the outer colonies, but nothing confirmed, until now. This changes everything." "Sir, Hadrian was a massacre," Vance said. "They slaughtered civilians to gauge our reaction. What happens when they come back to test us again?" "They won't get the chance," Kovacs said. "Fleet Command is authorizing Operation Iron Fist, an immediate counterstrike against these aliens. We're assembling a strike force. Your ship will spearhead reconnaissance. Gather intel. Expose their vulnerabilities. Then we hit them where it hurts." Ramirez grinned. "Now that's what I'm talking about." Vance nodded. "We'll find them, Admiral. And we'll make sure they regret starting this." The Admiral's hologram flickered out. Vance turned to his crew. "Prepare for deployment. We track them. We hunt them. We end this." Aboard the Zalari warship, unknown system. Deep within the void, the Zalari warship floated in silence. Its interior pulsed with bioluminescent veins of energy. Tall, skeletal figures moved like shadows through the corridors, their elongated limbs gliding effortlessly. In the central chamber, High Strategist Velnaker observed the hololithic replay of Hadrian's destruction. the human's response intrigued him. Rage. Unrestrained, primal. A low chime signaled the arrival of another commander. They will retaliate, the newcomer stated. They are an unpredictable species. Indeed, Velnaker mused. They reacted not with submission, but with defiance. Primitive. Yet, dangerous. Shall we prepare for extermination? Velnaker's dark eyes gleamed. No. Let them come. Let them believe they have a chance. It will make their fall all the more satisfying. The Zalari ship pulsed with energy. The game had only just begun. The hunt begins. Back aboard the Vindicator, the crew prepared for their mission. Slip space calculations, weapons calibrations, and intelligence analysis moved at a relentless pace. No one hesitated. No one questioned the necessity of what came next. Vance stood at the command console, staring at the star map. Somewhere out there, the Zalari waited. Mira approached. Elias, we need to be ready for what we might find. This species isn't just militarily superior. They think differently. We can't assume they'll follow any human logic. That's why we need to surprise them, Vance said. We adapt. We strike first. And we show them what it means to challenge humanity. Ramirez joined them, securing his rifle. Sir, once we find them, are we taking prisoners? Vance's expression hardened. No. Not this time. With a final glance at the ruined remains of Hadrian on the view screen, he gave the order. Engage slip space. We're going hunting. The Vindicator cut through slip space like a spear, hurtling toward its target. Silence filled the bridge, the kind that only came before battle. Every officer, every Marine, every technician knew what was coming. The hunt was over. They had found the Zalari. Exiting slip space in 60 seconds, Carter announced, his voice steady, but edged with tension. Captain Elias Vance tightened his grip on the console. Status on the fleet? The Hammerfall and Resolute are forming up behind us, Carter said. Strike Force is holding at the rally point, awaiting final orders. Vance nodded. Good. Today, we remind the Zalari who they're dealing with. Mira Lorne glanced up from her station, her features taut with concern. We need to be careful, Elias. We still don't fully understand how their weapons work. If they've adapted since Hadrian, then we adapt faster, Ramirez cut in, loading a fresh mag into his rifle. That's what we do. That's why we win. A sharp chime sounded. The ship trembled as reality bent around them. Then, with a jarring lurch, they snapped back into normal space. The target lay ahead. A Zalari battlegroup, 6 sleek, obsidian warships, their hulls pulsing with eerie, bioluminescent energy. Positioned near a massive gas giant, they drifted like predators waiting for prey. No signals. No transmissions. Just silent malice. They know we're here, Carter murmured. Good, Vance said coldly. Launch fighters. All ships, weapons free. The battle erupted in an instant. Human railguns thundered, spewing tungsten rounds at hypersonic speeds. Explosions blossomed along Zalari hulls, sending shards of their strange, organic armor into the void. Missile swarms tore through the blackness, forcing the aliens into evasive maneuvers. The Zalari countered with eerie precision. Pulses of green-white energy lanced through the dark, shearing through shields and ripping human ships apart. The Resolute took a direct hit to its engines, spiraling out of formation before detonating in a blinding burst of flame. Shields at 40%, a technician called out. Keep firing. Vance barked. Target their engines. We don't need to kill them all, just cripple them. The Vindicator lurched as a beam of energy skimmed its hull, peeling armor away like paper. Ramirez grabbed onto a railing, teeth bared. We're getting chewed up out here, Cap. We need to change the game. Myra's eyes widened as she studied her console. I think I have something. Their ships aren't just machines, they're biomechanical. They're alive, Elias. They react like living organisms. Then how do we kill them? Vance demanded. She hesitated. We disrupt their nervous system. If we overload their energy conduits, it could send them into shock. Like stunning a living creature. Ramirez smirked. You want to fry their brains? I like it. Do it, Vance ordered. Carter, reroute all available power to EMP torpedoes. Target their command ships. Let's see if they can handle neural overload. The torpedoes launched in a synchronized burst, streaking toward the Zalari vessels. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lead alien warship shuddered. Its bioluminescent veins flickered, its movements turning erratic. The ship convulsed, jerking wildly, colliding with one of its own. A chain reaction followed, 2 more vessels spasmed, their energy fields destabilizing, causing their hulls to fracture from within. Ramirez let out a victorious shout. Hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about. Vance, however, remained focused. We're not done yet. Mira, can we scale this up? She nodded. If we modify our torpedoes with a high-frequency energy pulse, it could force their entire fleet into system shock. But we'd need to get dangerously close. How close? She swallowed. Inside their formation. Vance considered the risk for only a moment. We do it. Carter, set a collision course. Bring us right into their teeth. Ramirez grinned, gripping his rifle. Damn right we do. The Vindicator plowed through the battlefield, weaving between wreckage and enemy fire. The remaining Zalari ships adjusted, focusing their fury on the lone human vessel. Brace! Carter shouted. The ship buckled under the onslaught. Hull plating sheared away, consoles exploded, and the lights flickered. Warnings screamed across the bridge. But they kept going. Point-blank range. Fire! Vance roared. The modified torpedoes launched. They detonated in a synchronized pulse of energy, unleashing an electromagnetic storm that cascaded through the Zalari fleet. The effect was immediate. The remaining warships twitched violently, their hulls rupturing as their own systems turned against them. Their weapons flickered, then died. One by one, the monstrous vessels ceased movement, left adrift in the void. Silence. Then, a single, fractured transmission filtered through the comms. A voice, hollow and fractured. You adapt faster than expected. This is not over. Then nothing. The battle was won. But the war had just begun. The aftermath was eerie. The Zalari fleet floated in ruins, some vessels still twitching with the last vestiges of life. Vance exhaled, running a hand down his face. Status? Carter surveyed the damage. Hammerfall is intact. We lost the Resolute. Casualties on our side are heavy, but we held. Mira exhaled. We learned something today. They can bleed. Ramirez grinned, gripping his rifle tighter. Yeah. And next time, we're putting them in the ground. Vance turned toward the viewport, staring at the wreckage. The Zalari had tested humanity. Now, humanity had tested them. And the war was only getting started. Set course for command. We have a war to win. The Vindicator limped into the fleet's command station, its hull scorched, its systems battered but operational. The battle had been won, but it was a hollow victory. The Zalari were not defeated. They were adapting, just as humanity had. And they would come back. Captain Elias Vance stepped off the docking ramp, his boots hitting the reinforced deck with purpose. Around him, crew members carried the wounded, medics rushing between them. The faces he passed were weary, battle-hardened. They had survived, but survival wasn't enough. Admiral Kovacs was waiting in the war room, holographic battle reports flickering around him. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. You hit them hard. But I doubt they're running. Vance folded his arms. No, sir. They're learning. Just like us. And they won't make the same mistakes twice. Kovacs exhaled sharply. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. Fleet Command has approved Operation Scorched Sky, a full-scale assault on the Zalari stronghold. We take the fight to them. We end this. Mira Lorne, standing beside Vance, hesitated. We need to be careful. If we miscalculate, we could trigger a retaliation that we're not prepared for. Kovacs turned to her. Doctor, if we hesitate, we give them time to rebuild. Time to grow stronger. They tested us, slaughtered civilians, tried to break us. But they failed. Now we remind them why humanity survives. Ramirez grinned. I like this plan already. Deployment, Zalari Prime System. The human fleet emerged from slipspace in coordinated precision, forming an iron wall around the alien stronghold. Zalari Prime was unlike any world they had encountered, a vast megastructure spanning the planet's surface, its organic metal towers pulsing with eerie luminescence. A living world, breathing, shifting. This place gives me the creeps, Ramirez muttered from the ground assault transport. Vance adjusted his helmet. Good. Means we're in the right place. Mira studied the readings. This isn't just their capital, it's their command nexus. Take this out, and we don't just cripple their fleet. We sever their control over their entire war network. Then we hit them where it hurts, Vance said. All units, prepare for drop. The fleet opened fire. Massive kinetic strikes pounded the Zalari defenses, sending shockwaves rippling across the megastructure. Fighters weaved through enemy fire, railgun rounds slicing through alien ships like razors. The Zalari, caught off guard by the sheer aggression of the attack, scrambled to respond. Vance and his strike team descended like a hammer. Drop pods slammed into the alien surface, hatches blowing open. Marines poured out, weapons blazing. The air was thick with ionized energy and the scent of burning metal. Zalari warriors met them in the streets, their elongated limbs moving unnaturally fast, plasma weapons shrieking as they fired. Ramirez took point, his rifle barking in controlled bursts, cutting down enemies as they charged. They're throwing everything at us, he called out. Let them, Vance growled, driving his blade into an approaching Zalari, watching as its bioluminescent veins flickered and died. We're not here to hold back. We're here to finish this. Inside the Nexus. Myra's team worked furiously at the central control hub, her fingers flying across her datapad. Their command structure is linked to this core. If I can overload it, their fleet loses coordination. It'll turn them into a headless beast. How long? Vance asked, keeping watch. 2 minutes. Maybe 3. We don't have 3. Ramirez, cover her. The Zalari knew what was happening. Reinforcements flooded in, their shrieking war cries echoing off the metallic corridors. Ramirez and the Marines laid down a wall of suppressive fire, grenades sending bodies flying. Mira, you better be fast. Ramirez shouted. Working on it, she snapped, fingers racing against time. A sudden tremor ran through the structure. The megacity was reacting, as if aware of the attack. Walls shifted, the very floor pulsing like muscle tissue. The Zalari weren't just biological, they were symbiotic with their world. Elias. Mira called. If this place is alive, then it's going to defend itself. Vance grimaced. Then we kill it before it kills us. The final strike. Outside, the battle raged. Human warships danced between enemy fire, their coordinated strikes devastating the Zalari fleet. But it wasn't enough. For every ship they destroyed, more took its place. Fleet Command, this is Vindicator. We need an orbital strike on the Nexus. Vance shouted over the comms. Kovacs' voice was firm. You're still inside. We're out of time. Do it. Silence. Then, understood. Strike inbound. You have 60 seconds. Move. Vance shouted. Mira finished her override, slamming a final command into the system. It's done. Their fleet is blind. The team sprinted through collapsing corridors, dodging Zalari warriors as they twisted in confusion, severed from their hive mind coordination. The city itself groaned, walls caving as its neural core faltered. Drop ship inbound. 20 seconds. Ramirez yelled. The team burst into the open, racing for their evac. Behind them, the Nexus convulsed, entire sections of the megacity collapsing into itself. They leapt onto the drop ship as the first orbital railgun blast struck. The impact was apocalyptic. The Nexus imploded, shockwaves tearing through the landscape, reducing the once mighty capital to ashen ruin. Above, the Zalari fleet faltered. Leaderless. Scattered. Vulnerable. Fleet command, hit them now. Vance ordered. Human warships surged forward, carving through the enemy ranks. The Zalari broke, their once formidable formations crumbling. Some fled. Others were wiped from existence. And just like that, the war ended. Epilogue, the aftermath. Back at the fleet station, the surviving crew of the Vindicator stood before Kovacs. He surveyed them all, bruised, bloodied, but victorious. The Zalari are broken. Their empire is gone. Because of you. Because of humanity. Mira exhaled, tension finally releasing. So it's over. No, Vance said quietly. It's never over. Not really. Ramirez cracked his knuckles. Then they better pray they never come back. Kovacs nodded. We survived. And now, the galaxy knows, we're not prey. We are the storm. Vance looked out at the stars, his grip tightening. And we will never be tested again.